Bye!
You know, it's been a very long time since we've done one of these videos, but we decided that this year it would be fun to sort of bring back a TBR video, but not really a TBR video. We're just gonna call them possibility piles because sometimes, most times, we end up picking out books to read and then we don't end up reading them because we get distracted by pretty shiny things. You know.
Exactly. So
it
like,
happens more often than you think.
So to be read feels more final and honestly makes your guilt score way too high.
Yeah.
So we're calling it, as Alexa, the
piles.
possibility pile. Yeah, possibility pile. It's like this is a pile of possibility. So we could possibly read these.
Or possibly not.
Or possibly not. You never know. But we'd like to find out.
This is true. And also, I would like to say that from my part, the books I'm picking out are possible reads, but there are also a lot of other books that I am actually going to be reading, mostly because they're either buddy reads, they're review books, things that need to get read, so... and we're going to get the obvious out of the way, because if you have been reading my blog, watching my channel, following my Instagram for a very long time, you know that in February there is a book that I'm highly anticipating that is coming out, and yes, I will be reading it, and that book is A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. We're just gonna state the obvious before we go right into the actual possibility file.
Right. I almost kind of want to rate them as possibility high, low, unknown.
Mine are all pretty high because these are all books I just picked out because I was really thinking about reading them.
For mine, can you say mixed bag? Anyway, on that note, why don't you kick us off?
Alright, so the first book I'm going to mention is actually something I'm going to be listening to on audiobook, and it is a non-fiction read. It is actually by Ta-Nehisi Coates. The book in question is called Between the World and Me, and this is basically a letter from him to his adolescent son, which kind of explains or gives a framework for understanding the US's history and the current crisis that's going on.
I might want to
I've heard really good things about it, and I also love that he's narrating it too. So it's going to be extra special.
Snap, that's awesome.
It's not a very long audiobook, but I do think that it has a powerful message to share with the people who are reading it, so I definitely felt like I wanted to check that one out in February. I have two fantasy books that I'm considering reading in February, one of which is higher, if we were going to rank them, higher in terms of the possibility of me reading, and the book that I would rank higher is The Fifth Season, which is by N.K. Jemisin. This is a book that has won the Hugo Award. I think every single book in this series has won a Hugo Award. And my friend Alex, I'll link her Instagram down below, actually recently read this and she loved it, and she is not the only person I have heard read it and love it. So I want to read it and hopefully love it as much as everybody else does. This is the way the world ends for the last time. It starts with the Great Red Rift across the heart of the world's sole continent, spewing ash that blots out the sun. It starts with death, with a murdered son and a missing daughter. It starts with betrayal and long dormant wounds rising up to fester. This is the stillness, a land familiar with catastrophe, where the power of the earth is wielded as a weapon and where there is no mercy, which sounds super dramatic. And I am like already ready to like discover the story for myself. The only other thing I know about it is that it's told in second person point of view, which is unusual, and I don't think it's something I've read very often, so I am eager to see how I'll fare with that. Work? I don't know, we're gonna find out. The other book that I am hopefully going to be reading in February is Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. This came out last year. Some legacies are meant to be broken. After her mother dies in an accident, 16-year-old Bree Matthews wants to escape. A residential program for bright high schoolers seems like the perfect opportunity until she witnesses a magical attack on her very first night on campus. So they try to erase her memory so that she can't remember this incident. They fail at that. And she discovers that there is this entire world of magic inspired by Arthurian legend that actually exists that she didn't know about, and she gets involved in it.
There it is.
So I am very intrigued by this premise. I have been intrigued since I first heard of it, so I'm hopefully going to be checking this one out in February. Yeah. Hopefully.
Plus Arthurian.
I know, it's going to be so interesting.
Awesome.
All
right, so this is the Dactyl Squad series by Danny Jose Older, and it's basically set in an alternate United States during the Civil War, but where dinosaurs are domesticated-ish.
I mean, why not?
So, on the one hand, as you notice, I'm using one of them as a bookmark for the other, and so it's obviously middle grade. I apparently have found that I only really like historical anything as long as there's dragons involved, and I thought dinosaurs, close enough. Not really. So the possibility of me reading this all the way through, because this is on my DNF or die pile, is starting to dip dramatically. And the only reason it's hanging on for dear life is because it's a series and we have the first two already, and Rick Riordan lined up to get a copy of this thing, and his copy signed when he talked to Danny Jose Older. So it's got so many endorsements. It's just, I'm not feeling it as well as I would like. So we will see if I am any more honest with myself than too much to my wife's delight from a cleaning perspective, if I'm going to continue on with that. Anyway, however, I do feel better about this particular book, The Dragon Warrior by Katie Zhao. Also, you know, a middle grade book. Speaking of dragons, it's leaning more towards sort of Chinese mythology, and apparently for people who loved Arusha and the End of Time, which I kind of did. She's a member of the Jade Society, and it's going to involve dragons, and she goes to San Francisco, you know, and there's like you know, it's revealed that she just might be the fabled heaven breaker. So there's that kind of like I'm a child of prophecy type deal meets the real world, and plus dragons, right? Well, dragon warrior anyway. We'll find out how much dragons are actually involved. So possibility looking pretty high right now. Lastly, for this particular middle grade roundup, all of these are on my DNF or die pile. So if I'm not feeling it, I will stick to. I will be meaner this year.
Not
quote
meaner.
Unquote.
Stricter.
I like that word, and just sort of like put it down. However, I do have a soft spot for the Dark Deep book written by Ali Condi and Brendan Reichs, because it was cute and it was kind of Stranger Things-ish, but then it went sort of to a really wild place where, you know, out of nowhere in this small town, a bunch of, you know, people think their greatest fears and they just materialize ridiculously. Okay. So after they resolve the events of the Dark Deep, suddenly the Beast is now the next book in that story. So in my head, I'm like, where else are you guys gonna go? You ended it, you tied everything up in such a pretty decent bow, right? How else do you sort of move forward from that? And so this book should reveal, I hope I feel it. I mean, I love the Dark Deep. I have a soft spot, but it's not like I'm gonna have it on my shelf, you know, in hardbound. It just didn't move me that much. So we will find out if this new ancient thing, I guess, because it says something ancient has awakened. I'm like, apart from whatever the heck happened in the Dark Deep, I mean, is that, because that didn't feel new, and it wasn't aliens either, thank goodness. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I do love my alien stories, but yeah. So this is long overdue.
Okay, this is my last set of books. They're 4 contemporary novels. The first one is an adult contemporary romance, and it's part of the Reluctant Royal series by Alyssa Cole. The book is called A Duke by Default. This is the second book in the series. It is about a woman, a New York socialite, who is determined to be the heroine of her own story, and the Duke in shining armor she rescues along the way. So basically in the story, Portia, who is the New York socialite in question, is tired of being a disappointment, you know, to the people around her and also to herself.
Aren't we all?
And so she ends up going to Scotland for an apprenticeship with a sword maker.
Sure.
Yeah, and then she kind of likes to push his buttons, but also discovers that he's actually a duke that doesn't want to be a duke. And she decides that he's going to be her new makeover project because, you know, why not? And then I have to tell you, like, this last part of the summary kind of just made me laugh when I read it. Forging metal into weapons and armor is one thing, but when desire burns out of control and the media spotlight gets too hot to bear, can a commoner turn duke and his posh apprentice find lasting love? I'm already here for it, and I haven't even read it yet. The next book is a big award winner book, and a lot of people have already read this, so I'm a little late to the party, but it is The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. This is about Xiomara Bautista, and she feels unheard and unable to hide, but she secretly pours all of her dreams and frustrations and thoughts into a notebook. And she's invited to join her school's slam poetry club.
Ah, nice.
But she doesn't know how she can do that without her mom finding out, because it's not something her mom would agree with. Yeah. So the last line is also pretty killer in the summary. It says, "But even so, in the face of a world that may not want to hear her, Xiomara refuses to be silent." And I think that just is a very powerful last line to a summary, so I can't wait to check this out. Yeah. This is also written in verse, so I actually don't think it'll take me that long to get through it as well. Alright, 2 more books. We're gonna do the not fluffy one first. The book is called When You Were Everything. This is by Ashley Woodfolk, and the story of this one is basically about a friendship breakup. So it says, "You can't rewrite the past, but you can always choose to start again. It's been 27 days since Cleo and Layla's friendship imploded. Nearly a month since Cleo realized they'll never be besties again. Alternating between timelines of then and now, When You Were Everything blends past and present into an emotional story about the beauty of self-forgiveness, the promise of new beginnings, and the courage it takes to remain open to love." Listen, I am always here for friendship stories, and I find stories about friendship breakups particularly interesting because that is the type of deep feeling that not a lot of people try to portray on page or even on screen. And when an author is successfully able to do that, it's a win in my book, so I am definitely interested in checking this one out. And last, but certainly not least, is a book called I Want to Be Where You Are by Christina Forrest. And this one has a ballerina in it, which is probably the main reason. The main character of this book is named Chloe, and her mom kind of shuts the door on her like dreams of becoming a dancer. So she has the chance to audition for like a conservatory that she really wants to go to. The only catch is it's kind of a drive away from where she actually lives. So her plan is that she needs to get there so that she can audition to be at that conservatory. And she ends up driving, but her annoying neighbor Eli kind of hitches a ride with her along with his dog. So now she's going after her ballet dreams, but then she has these two unwanted passengers with her. And it kind of brings everything to a head for her and forces her to confront some things that maybe she was not willing to face. It says, filled with romance, hijinks, and more than a few broken rules, I Want to Be Where You Are is a testament to being brave and going the distance for what you want. And it sounds really good, and I'm really looking forward to checking this one out. This one is definitely high on my possibility pile for February.
So mine is going to be Battle Angel Ellita. It's going to be in my next on the pile. This is volume 1 of like 9, I want to say 6, or I don't know. There's a whole this has been sitting on my shelf since a couple of Christmases ago because a couple of Christmases ago I managed to watch the Battle Angel Ellita movie, which again I would say is one of those things where it got like 61% on Rotten Tomatoes, but it doesn't necessarily, like, it's not like Rotten Tomatoes is the end all be all of every single sort of movie. No. It's a benchmark, but not necessarily the greatest and not necessarily infallible either in terms of things. And I absolutely love the movie. I like sort of like the mecha aspect. I don't usually do cyberpunk, but I will for this. And
for
the possibility of me doing Battle Ellita is super high. Because guess what's on Comixology? Which means I don't have to lug this tome around. I can just use any one of like sort of like devices to just go, I'm gonna read it from here. It centers around Ellita, who was found at a scrapper junkyard type deal. And when she is revived, both the person who has revived her and very soon herself, they realize that she is actually made of technology that has not been seen in sort of like the lower dregs of society where she's found, nor is it technology that's been around anytime recently. So she's from a more ancient, dare I say even more advanced, like strain of technology, and nobody knows quite why. And so she's just a young girl looking out into the world and can also like murder you 6 ways to Sunday. That's a very great way to describe that. And I dig that. I like that. I like that very, very much. Thank you very much, please. So the chances of me actually reading this thing, possibility, very high. Finally, to sort of end this thing, this is Dragon Watch Volume 4 by Brandon Mull called Champion of the Titan Games. I am actually partway through this book already, but for whatever reason, I just can't seem to just punch through. It's not sucking me in quite rapidly as, let's say, the black hole that lore kind of was for me in that sense. Like the singularity that is, let's say, the lore by Alexander Bracken, probably one of the few books actually, like novels that I read in 2020. Just 2 days, like that was it. Like I just could not just let it go. It's not having that effect on me.
That's unfortunate.
Which is unfortunate because I guess it's just, you know, I just want to know what happens next. How do we, and the meandering sort of almost like, it's not like, and Rick Riordan does exactly the same thing. It's like we're heading here, but we need to take these sort of detours. It's just, I feel like the detours make more sense. And the fact that, at least in the Blood of Olympus series, where Riordan sort of tells different stories that happen in real time at the same time, actually cuts the timeline shorter. Whilst here, it's very linear, and I'm like, come here, it's not happening. It's really happening. We're gonna really deviate from the path and go this a ways. And it sort of takes away from the urgency, which is, I think, something that I'm learning valuably as a writer, where I'm like, we gotta pick up the pace a little bit. And so that's the only problem I have this thing. Dragon Watch is the second cycle of books of the Fablehaven series, where you've got a couple of kids who realize that their grandparents are actually keepers. Yeah, thank you. I was thinking of like, you know, like park rangers or something.
Yeah, something
if the parks were filled with mythical creatures. The world has changed since then. They've taken their place in the world, and now the dragons are all over the place, and everyone is in danger once again. So I love their stories. That's why I'm still holding on to this for dear life.
I don't think you would give that one up, even if you paused it.
Exactly. So I need to know what happens to these siblings, because some crazy stuff happens to them in the first 3 books. This hopefully sets up the last book nicely if he's going to do another 5-part book series. So possibility reading this year, high. Finishing it anytime soon, oh boy, let's find out.
Alright, that is the end of our February possibility pile video. If you actually want to tell us which books you think will enjoy the most of all the things we mentioned, feel free. And if you have...
If you've read them, please.
Yes. Or if you have an interest in hearing us talk about one of them specifically, also feel free to mention that. That'll help us prioritize as well. Anyway, let us know what you're planning to read in February. I would love to hear it. And we will see you guys with a new video soon. Bye!